Saludos seguidores de Lucha Libre Online. Y aquí estoy con una mega leyenda, no tan solo en Estados Unidos, el mundo entero. Alguien bien conocido en Puerto Rico como uno de los pastores de Nueva Zelanda, uno de los hombres más odiados en Puerto Rico con sus guerras específicamente contra los Invaders. Pero ustedes también lo pueden conocer como el WWE Hall of Famer, Bushwhacker, Luke Williams. Luke.
Oh, g'day, ladies. And of course, I'm a Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer too. I went into that in 220. Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer. And I'm so grateful to be here today. If it wasn't for the fans out there, I wouldn't be here, you know, and a Hall of Famer. It's the people out there have made where I am.
Luke, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very, very grateful that you're able to be here with your presence and being with us. Now, I got a couple of questions because we all know not only did you go all over the world and WWE as the Bushwhacker, but specifically you have a lot of history in Puerto Rico.
A lot of history. And of course, my wife is from Guayama. So I do have a lot of history. And then I started going there in 78 or 79. And a guy called Hugo Savinovich was my manager then. I don't know whether you know him, but that's going back in time. Is he still alive?
I've heard that he's around probably, but you know, we really don't know.
Yeah, we had Hugo and me. Butchered me with a tag team in the ring, and at night my tag partner was Hugo Savinovich. We partied, but those were the days, mate. The history of Puerto Rico is going right back then when I worked for Carlos Colon. And I'm just going to tell you, the first time I ever come to work for Carlos Colon, he says, it was a Friday night, and it was in Ponce. A Saturday night not in Ponce, in Caguas, and he says, I want you to come in the front door. He says, I'll be signing autographs for the fans there, and when you come in, use your flagpole on me. Well, the flagpole was steam pipe. It wasn't, steam pipe's pretty heavy, and we had a socket in the middle, so we split it in half. We came in there, we went over to Carlos, who was signing, and beat the living shit out of him. There was blood splattered all over the walls, and that, you know, we just dealt to him. The fans were scared because they'd never seen us before, and then we went into the arena, to the dressing room. Well, they brought an ambulance in and they carted Carlos away. Anyhow, that was about 7:45 at night. Show started at 8:30. By the time everybody got in the building, the word was around that Carlos was carried away to the hospital. Anyhow, the match that night was the main event, was the Invader won and Carlos Colon. Well, he come to that match, Invader come out by himself, and he says, you know, this is what has ever happened, and that is, I'm going to take care of it myself. And I've been offered other people to be my partners, but this is something. Carlos is a brother to me, he said, and all that sort of stuff. Anyhow, so we started the match. Finally, we got him down and we started kicking the shit out of him and beating him up. He got some blood and all that sort of stuff, and he kept crawling to his corner. And all of a sudden, an ambulance drove to the back of the arena. Out came Carlos with a baseball bat or some, you know, or a pick handle, and he came to the ring and he started laying the smack down. We took a couple of shots and got out of dodge, and then he was all bandaged up. There's blood still coming through the bandages, and that was our first night in Puerto Rico, and we got over big that time.
No,
that was first night, and then from then on the stories go on. I came back. That was in 1979, and then I came back in '83 to book there, and that's when we had the biggest house. We did 40,000 people with. We had the internet hooked up with not the cable hooked up with Ponce and
Maya West, right?
Maya West, yes.
Yeah.
And then I think we did 24 in San Juan, and the rest we picked up in the other two buildings. There was 40,000 people there, all told, that show. And that's when Carlos went to, we did this one hell of a story. Carlos went to get his biggest enemy as his partner, and that was Abdullah the Butcher. We set up a house in Texas, and he kept coming and knocking and asking the houseboy, and then they came with a case full of money. A briefcase full of money and Abdullah accepted. Well, he grunted and accepted, and that's when they had the match. And that was a dynamite match and a wild night. I think that was I don't know where was that show? I can't remember where the show was. It was in San Juan, but what arena, I don't know.
It was probably the Clemente or the Iran Beaton?
Southside show.
Yeah.
But it was a major show. The show, I've got a friend here now who used to be down there with me, George Napolitano. The big show with Carlos and Carlos with Abdullah the Butcher against Brody and Hanson.
I wasn't there.
I
wish I would have been there. That would have been so.
That was a history. That was history in Puerto Rico because his enemy had been Abdullah since '75.
It was probably here on this stadium or the real Bayamon, one of those.
Yeah, yes.
It was one of them. It was one of the stadiums.
That was a night to remember because I remember Abdullah had to have a separate dressing room and he waddled across the field because Carlos come out of the good guys' dressing room and then the heels had their own dressing room. You know, Brody and Hanson had another dressing room. Abdullah was by himself. That night in the big ballpark, but that was a wild night. And boy, we made history in Puerto Rico that night for the biggest crowd ever, you know, for wrestling.
That's great to hear. That's great history, mi gente. Para que sepa, ustedes acaban de escuchar una historia increíble sobre la lucha libre de Puerto Rico que se ha quedado en el olvido, pero en verdad jamás se olvidará. Luke, thank you so much.
Of course, we had numerous angles with the Invaders where we just sold out the arenas all over the island for maybe 6 months to a year. Consistent in that, and broke Invader one's arm and came back with that story for quite a while. And then I went to WWE, and after WWE, I came back to the island as babyface to the Bushwhackers. And then we turned on the Invaders again. Now this is going from 85. Now we're 217, and we were 85. Now we're 97, and we came back and we did a crucifixion with the Invader one against the cage. I tied him up against the cage with barbed wire, and came back for the anniversary show. The anniversary show, and they hadn't done over since Brody's death. They hadn't done over 12,000 people, and we came back and we did 20,000, and with that angle.
That's incredible, Luke.
And we turned, and in that show we turned Invader 2 against Invader 1.
Yeah, I remember all those stories. But Luke, I really want to thank you so much for sitting down with me here, hanging out with me here at WrestleCon. Hopefully we'll have more stories and have a beer later and have more stories sitting down.
We've got more stories to come, mate. It's when I came over in 201 to work for Victor Quinones. I worked for him for 8 years, but that's another story. To be continued.
All right, so mi gente de Lucha Libre Online, les habla la Gloria Mike Dagger. Dagger out.